In this week's In-Ear Insights, let's talk about go-to-market strategies. So one of the things that we've seen happening in the various sort of thought leaders and key opinion leaders, particularly on LinkedIn, is pivoting from talking about target marketing and niche marketing to account-based marketing. And now for some reason, people are now talking about go-to-market strategy as the next big thing in marketing. And this, I don't know about you, Katie, but this confuses me deeply because go-to-market strategy, aka product launch strategy, isn't a new thing at all. It's ancient. It's probably the oldest part of marketing. Like, I have this thing. How do I sell it? From the very first farmers. Like, I have a barrel of apples. How do I sell this? To today, and I think I want to get your opinion on why you think this might be the thing. But just to very quickly level set for folks who might not be clear, you have a business plan, which is overall what your business is doing. You have a marketing strategy, which is how marketing executes on the business plan. And you have go-to-market strategy, which is taking a product or service, something, and bringing it to market, hence go-to-market. So it is a subset of a subset of business strategy. And I think that's a useful distinction so that we don't get all kinds of confused. Is you got something and you got to bring it to market. So Katie, what's your opinion about why we've pivoted from account-based marketing to go-to-market strategy?
Well, I think, anecdotally, I would say you can probably tie it to, the great, reboot or the Great Recession or the great, I'm leaving my job or the quiet quitting or whatever the hell the thing is these days. Basically, what's old is new again. And people have changed careers. People have, rediscovered marketing as an effective tool. Like, oh my gosh, like the pipeline is, doesn't have enough stuff in it. What the heck do we do? Let's try this magical new thing called marketing. And so I feel like it's not that it's hot and new. It's almost like a rediscovery, or, we've forgotten about the fact that we can just do basic marketing like audience research or, understanding, hey, is there a need for the thing that we have? Okay, let's go ahead and give people what they need versus shoving something else down their throats. I'm not going to draw like the straight, connected lines to things like, the cookieless future and, data privacy, but that does play a role in the fact that we can't rely on lazy marketing tactics anymore, that we actually have to think through, what does this person actually need? How do I give my audience the stuff that they're asking for? How do I find my audience? Because I can no longer rely on just lazily cooking them and then throwing them into my ecosystem. They have to choose to come in. So I probably need to give them a reason to choose me over anyone else. So that's my quick hot take on why the go-to market strategy is resurfacing. It's a few different things. Now, anyone who's calling it new is clearly new to the industry because it's new to them. But you're absolutely right. It's not new. It's literally, hey, I have a thing. How do I let people know I have a thing? That's a go-to market strategy. And even then, I wouldn't even really call it a strategy. It's a plan. It's a tactic. It's part of the overall, business plan, as you said, Chris.
So you've run and product launches. You've built that in your career. What are the components of a go-to-market strategy?
Number one is trying to figure out if there's even demand for the thing. That's probably the step that people skip over. And basically it's having a solution in search of a problem. And so I can sit here in my office and come up with like what I think are 10 great ideas that people could probably use. But if I don't have any concrete evidence that people actually need the solution that I'm creating, it's stalled out, because then I'm just going to be wasting my time. So that's step number one. Step number one is understanding, is there a need for the thing in the first place? Number two is figuring out, how somebody would use a thing, whether it's a physical product or a service. Yes, I have a solution to your problem, but that's not enough information. And so, Chris, for example, one of our solutions is to do a Google Analytics infrastructure audit. Not everybody needs us to do it start to finish. Some people just need a couple of buttons, twisted and turned. Some people do need sort of, the full Megillah from start to finish. And some people just want a little bit of training or validation to say, did I do it right myself? And so making sure you're not only understanding that there's a need for it, but what that need looks like. And then once you understand the need, then you can start to develop the thing. And this is where, you use all that feedback to actually develop the product, do some beta testing, make sure from start to finish that it really works the way as intended. And then you can start to run down the different phases of a customer journey to say, well, if somebody doesn't know about us, how do they find out about us? Well, once somebody knows about us, how do we keep them engaged? Well, once they're engaged, how do we get them to purchase something? And so working your way through the customer journey to build out that marketing plan to say, all right, first and foremost, they need to know what the thing is. And so creating that messaging, creating those assets, creating those tutorials, those FAQs, and so on and so forth. And then you can get into the, okay, now they're ready to buy something. So that's a very long-winded way of saying, make sure there's a need for it, make sure that you're giving people what they've asked for, and then you need to let them know that it's available.
Gotcha. How does that map to, say, like the 5 Ps? Because we talk about that framework a lot, and a lot of the go-to-market strategies I've seen are fairly, I wouldn't call them like overly simplistic, but they either rely on the traditional marketing 4 Ps, product, price, place, and promotion, or they rely on something even simpler, just like the who, what, when, where, why, and how. And I feel like that doesn't have enough detail, I think, to effectively say, like, here's the battle plan for how we're going to bring this thing to market. Like, for example, last night I was, for fun, I built a piece of software that extracts songs from Spotify playlists and counts up the most frequently occurring songs on a set of playlists, because I needed to put together a playlist for a friend's birthday in another country, and I don't know any of the popular music in that country, so I had to pull in this whole thing. So I have this thing, right? I have this product, which I don't think anybody besides me wants. How do I apply the 5 Ps to even figure out, like, should I even make the effort to build a go-to-market strategy for it?
You can use the 5 Ps for that. And so the first P, which is purpose, is basically, what is the problem you're trying to solve? And so for the piece of software that you wrote, your first question to answer is, what problem does this solve? What is the purpose of me creating this? And you gave me a very specific use case. You were trying to create a playlist for someone who lived in a different part of the world, and you didn't know what music was popular there. So that is a very specific use case. So in order to understand if other people have this problem, then that's the use case that you start shopping around. Like, is anybody else have this problem? Is this a problem that needs solving, or is this just unique to me? So that's the first P, is what problem does this solve? What is the purpose of creating this thing? And so as you start shopping that around, then you move down to the second P, which is people. As you're talking to people, you may find that there's variations of that problem. So at the core of what you created, it sounds like you created some sort of aggregator, for lack of a better term. So basically, if I have 5 different lists of things, what is the common piece? Like, does piece A appear on every single list, and how many times, and so on and so forth. And so if you remove the Spotify from it, then you can start to create those use cases of, as a marketing manager, I need to understand how many times my brand shows up in conversation across different social platforms. And so it's using the same kind of technology or the same methodology to solve a similar problem. And so, you're asking people, like, do you have to aggregate counts across different things? And then you can start to go into the process. Well, what does that process look like if it's not Spotify, if it's Facebook, if it's Twitter, if it's Reddit, whatever the thing is? And so what is that process? Does the process translate across platforms? And then you can get into the platform. Platform being the 4th P is not necessarily like, the platform I'm using is Spotify. The platform I'm using is Facebook. That's part of it. But you, Chris, need to use tools and technology to actually gather that data. So what platforms are you using? I'm guessing you're using R. I'm guessing you're using APIs. I'm guessing you're using, SQL or BigQuery or other things like that. But then also, what is your reporting output? And so, one of the things that we're talking about this week at the Marketing Profs B2B Forum is platforms in terms of collect, analyze, and reporting. So if you think of your technology platforms in those three different categories, then you can expand upon that list and have more detail. And then lastly, the fifth P, which is performance, is what's my measure of success? And so for this, it's, did I answer the question being asked? Did I solve a problem? If you only solved a problem for yourself, that's fine. If you solve the problem for other people, you may have a product that you can work on, that you can continue to develop, that solves additional problems.
Gotcha. Yeah, I did some Googling before I sat down to do this because I figured if it already exists, why reinvent the wheel?
Mm-hmm.
And not to my surprise, nobody offers this. I suspect very strongly it's a fairly unique problem. It's a fairly rare problem, and therefore there probably isn't demand for it, right? It's very rare that you would need to put together a birthday playlist of songs from, playlists in foreign languages for a friend who speaks that language, because presumably the person probably would have their own playlist anyway. So it's relatively niche. I think it's one of those cases, like if we think about product market fit, it's a good fit for the use case, but the use case is so rare that the market wouldn't ask for it.
Right. And that's the kind of, so as you're asking, what's new and different about go-to-market strategy, there isn't. That's the first step, regardless of how you're approaching it, regardless of if you're using artificial intelligence or, a piece of paper and a pen. You need to know, is there any demand for this thing, or is this just unique to me? And I think where a lot of companies get it wrong is they do develop a solution that works for them and then try to sell the shit out of it to people who haven't asked for it.
Yeah. One of the red flags that I know we used to say all the time in public relations, and is true, is if you say, we have no competitors, that's not a good thing. That means there isn't a market for what you have to offer.
And that's, it's interesting because, the term innovation is one of those words that makes me cringe a little bit, because it's just a buzzword. Innovation is reinventing the wheel in a new and different way. It's thinking about something, slightly differently than somebody else has been thinking about it. You're innovating something that's existing, apparently. Otherwise, you're developing something completely brand new, which at this stage of the game is going to be really difficult to do. It's basically, you are reinventing the wheel. And so it's, I don't even know where I was going with this. Innovate, like, it's hard because, so what you're doing, Chris, what you developed is essentially you were innovating how you can count and aggregate data, which technically you can do in something like Excel if you can bring the data in. And so companies that are saying, oh, hey, I created a way to aggregate and count data. Do you want this thing for $10 million? It's not going to go anywhere because that's existed forever. Like, I can do that by hand.
Innovation is a very tricky word, and I think it deserves its own podcast episode, because innovation literally means looking inwards, right? So novare in Latin and such, looking inwards for what's new. And that kind of almost goes against go-to-market strategy, right? Like, yes, you can create something net new that the market has never seen before, but you run the risk of inventing something that nobody else wants. Mm-hmm. One of the things that, people give Apple a lot of crap about copying, and they absolutely 100% do. Apple did not have the first MP3 player. Apple did not have the first smartphone. Apple, but for sure, did not have the first tablet. What they did was they waited to see if there was a market. They looked at the existing solutions on the market, said, these all suck. let's make our rendition of it. Apple was by far not the first company that had a smartwatch, but they've now made this the most popular watch in the world. And so from a go-to-market strategy, their go-to-market strategy is not let's be first to the market. Their market strategy is let's be best in our unique way, that for people who are in that ecosystem, like it everything just works. Like I got these new AirPods, AirPod Pros 2. They are not the best noise canceling headphones. They are not the best earbuds, but they are the customer experience is so seamless that I just put them in, they just work. There's no monkeying around, pressing, connecting things. It just magically works. And so in terms of their go-to-market strategy, the value proposition of their product is, hey, if you have our other products, these things just work. It's and you're paying for the seamless experience and reasonably good design. And so when it comes to innovation, I feel like if you're going to have a good go-to-market strategy, that almost has to extend up into your product marketing strategy of like, did we ask anybody if they have this problem?
Well, yeah, and that sort of, as I was saying, that's the first step is there demand for this thing? Apple's one of those interesting case studies, to your point, because you absolutely don't have to be first to market. You just have to be best at what you do. And customer experience is the key to all of that success. And it's doing that research. It's making sure that, you're actually solving a problem that people have and not just thrusting upon them a solution that you think that they need. So to your point earlier about people who are saying we don't have competitors, that's a red flag. It absolutely is, because we as humans are fairly predictable and our problems are fairly predictable. The thing that changes is the technology we apply to having a solution. That's sort of like the innovation piece of it. Is we've had the same problems for, thousands, if not millions of years. Like our problems are not new and different. The way in which we approach solving them is what's new and different. But if you're starting a new company, if you're trying to develop a new product, look at, just look inward, look at yourself, look at the people who are sitting around the table with you. We all have the same problem. It's just a variation of what that looks like. And what can you do to provide an even more simplistic solution to that problem? We don't want to complicate our lives. We want to make them easier. And so when you're thinking about that new product development, keep that in mind. Human problems, not new. Solutions, not new. So your goal is really, how do I provide the same solution, but even easier?
I asked this question on LinkedIn, and one of our colleagues wrote back. Apparently, consultants ran out of being able to charge money for account-based marketing, and now they've pivoted back to go-to-market strategy because they can charge more money for it. Which is probably true.
But when you think about it, consultants, ourselves included, we're not solving new problems. We, in order to quote unquote stay competitive, we have to come up with fancy new names and labels and packages to solve the exact same problem. And that, I think, is part of what's happening, is sort of, again, with the great marketing reboot and people changing roles and a whole new teams, these new team members are looking for solutions to help set them apart in these new roles. And oh my goodness, well, why don't I get on, the go-to-market strategy bandwagon with everybody else? Because that's what everyone else is buying right now. And consultancies are seeing that that's what's happening. And, to their credit, if there's nothing illegal about it, they're taking advantage of that. So they've repackaged account-based marketing. They've repackaged, new product development. They've repackaged Marketing 101 and said, hey, go to market, buy this. It's the same thing. I guarantee if we were to bring on one of those agencies, they would not tell us anything we don't already know about marketing.
So if we think about the 5 Ps, then it sounds like the purpose would be obviously why you're doing things, what problems does it solve, what is the value proposition? Mm-hmm. The people part sounds like it's the target market. Like, who are the people? And from the customer side, then who are the people internally that need to do the marketing? From the platform side, it sounds like that would be the mechanism for the marketing itself, and it also would be the product attributes, like where are you going to sell this thing. The process side sounds like it would be product marketing fit, competitive analysis, and the marketing plan itself. And then the performance side sounds like it's going to be the measure of success. Did the product launch successfully or not? And if so, what's its position in the marketplace?
The measure of success is also, did it solve the problem? Are people happy? Customer satisfaction, NPS scores, all of those things. Those are measures of performance. So yes, did we develop the thing? Did we launch it successfully? But, you can launch a product, but it doesn't necessarily answer the question being asked. And so you need to be specific about your performance and measure of success. Like, yeah, I can set up a Google ads campaign. Am I successful? Technically, yeah, because I did it. It's running. But is it doing anything? Is it giving people the information they need? And so you need to, dig a little bit deeper with those performance metrics. Like, yeah, I woke up today. I took a shower. I'm successful.
I mean, it's little things.
But you have to define that measure of success and tie it back to what problem is this solving.
Got it. So it sounds like go-to-market strategy, nothing really new, nothing new under the sun. But I wholly agree with you that the Great Marketing Reboot has set a lot of marketing departments back to square one. We were just talking with some colleagues last week, and pretty much, at a fairly large technology company, just the entire marketing department is exiting in one fashion or another, from the CMO downwards. And so that whole company's everything strategy is going to reboot, and would not surprise me if, as that happens, somebody Googles, how do I do go-to-market strategy for our product that now nobody knows how to market, and we're back to the basics.
We're back to the basics, and I think that that's something that we identified, a few months ago, is that what we're seeing based on the data that we collect, and what we're seeing based on conversations people are having and questions being asked, is we are back to the basics. However, by saying that we're back to the basics never go out of style, ever. People are always looking for the basics. People are always starting new jobs. And so I guess one of the pro tips, if you are a content creator, is make sure you have a library of basic 101 content. What is, how do I, where can I, answering those questions. That's something that we're working on internally, is making sure that, as advanced as we are with artificial intelligence and, organizational behavior, people still have questions about the basics. And it's a good refresher for us to make sure that we don't get too far from being able to share the answers to those basic questions.
And if you'd like a Spotify playlist that just kidding. But if you have questions about go-to-market strategy, or you want to share some of your thoughts about why you think it is suddenly the hot new thing, pop on over to our free Slack group. Go to trustinsights.ai/analytics for marketers, where you can, and over 2,800 other marketers are asking and answering each other's questions every single day. And wherever it is that you watch or listen to the show, if there's a platform you'd rather have it on instead, go to trustinsights.ai/TI podcast, where you can find all the different options we have for you to enjoy the show. And hey, if you enjoy the show, please leave us a review and a rating on your platform of choice. It always helps out the show. We thank you, and we will talk to you soon.